My name is Anthony Silson, and I'm going to talk about Baines and Newsome's map of 1839, which covered the whole of Leeds. I've chosen to talk about the township of Bramley, which you can see in front of you. If you know Bramley today, with its vast housing estates, you may be surprised by the rural scene that you can see in front of you depicted on the map of 1839. In the north, there are woodlands at Bramley Fall Woods and a smaller woodland near Sandford House. Within Bramley Fall Woods, quarrying was taking place, but you can hardly see any sign of this on the map. However, to the west, at New Leeds and Goole quarries, quarrying is taking place. All the quarries in this area are in rough rock, and this is a very durable, hard rock. Kirkstall Abbey is made of this type of rock, and it was particularly valuable for water surfaces like piers, wharfs and things like that, and locks in canals. The rock here is called rough rock, and it extends to both of these particular quarries. By 1839, a lot of the stone was probably being worked out of Bramley Fall quarries, and that may have led to the opening up of the New Leeds and Goole quarries in about the 1810 to 1820s or so. It's not only this area that's been quarried. If you look closely, there are quarries at other parts of Bramley, near, for example, the chapel that's named, in the extreme southeast at Gamble Hill. This is a totally different rock called Ellen Flags, and as the name suggests, it's split fairly easily, and although it was used for building houses, a lot of the stone was used for roofing because of its ability to slip there. Apart from the woods and the quarries, most of the area is farmland. Probably near the houses, you've got more grass. There might be a cow there to provide milk or to have a tenter frame. Further away, you've probably got more crops grown like wheat or oats or something like that. All the area virtually is cultivated, even in the south, because in 1799, the southern part, which was previously moorland, was enclosed, divided up into fields, and then cultivated. Transport is quite developed. The canal in the north, the Leeds and Liverpool Canal, opened in 1777, and this stimulated quarrying, by the way, because heavy, bulky stone was very easily moved by the canal, by waterways. Apart from that, there are several main roads. The oldest is Broad Lane, and this runs from Kirkstall in the east, past a place called Westfield, which is named on the map, and ultimately to Stanningley. It came up steeply from Kirkstall, dropped steeply down by Westfield. So it was quite a difficult way to travel, especially by horses, and also it bent a lot. This led in about 1820 to a new turnpike road being built just to the north, again from Kirkstall, again to Stanningley, but it was an easier route way, not so steep, and it's a fairly straight sections in places. In 1818, Wellington Bridge was opened in Leeds, and this paved the way for a new road between Leeds and Bradford. This is shown on the map as the Wortley and Stanningley Turnpike, and by that time it was a big advantage in that it was a dead straight road, virtually on the level nearly. There were some slight rises and falls, but it gave a much easier way between Leeds and Bradford and passing through Bramley. This had recently opened as well. Right down in the extreme south, and really not a part of Bramley, there's a towpath road from Leeds to Pudsey. However, the isolation of Bramley was not only declining by new roads, but by a proposed railway line, which you can just see in the north of the area near the canal. This, in fact, became reality in 1846. It was opened in that year, and it followed the Aire Valley like the canal did for its easy gradients. Settlement patterns in the area are predominantly nucleated. There are two sort of large settlements of Stanningley and Bramley itself. Small hamlets are shown at Whitecoat and Hilltop. What you can't see is the rapid growth that occurred. Even in the 20 years before 1839, the number of houses had doubled between 1821 and 1841, but this is not apparent so much on the map. You can see quite new housing developing on Broad Lane, but most of the houses are on Town Street, in the centre road in the centre of the map, and also, as I've mentioned, at Stanningley. What the map doesn't show, of course, and can't show at this scale, is how Bramley had developed in its service functions. There were at least two solicitors, a wine merchant, a draper's, a chemist, and so on. All the services you would expect to find in a small town. And rather than just being an agricultural village, which you might imagine from this map, Bramley was actually becoming, or had become by 1839, a very small town. You can't see too that most of the people were engaged in the wool textile industry, making cloth. Some clues to this are found on the periphery of the map. For example, Cape Mill is named, Ross Mills by the River Aire, St Helens Mills by the River Aire in the north there. But strangely, there are missions. The map doesn't show too the engineering works were being developed, which would become a major employer at Stanningley and Rodley. The Stanningley works were established in 1827, the Rodley works in 1831, but there's no indication of these. And as I've said previously, some of the mills are lacking. In fact, a lot of the mills are lacking. For example, Allen Brigg Mill, just by the Pudsey border at Lowtown, opened in 1830, isn't there? Swinnow Moor Mill opened in 1837, isn't there? 1835. Victoria Mill opened in 1837, isn't shown. It might be for these industries that they were too recent to actually show on the map. But one of the reasons is it's actually a direct copy, virtually, of the Thorpe's 1831 map. The only differences are the proposed railway line is shown, and the Wortley and Stanningley Turnpike, which was proposed in then, is become reality on this map. But otherwise, you're looking at a map of 1831, not of 1839, and that might explain why a lot of the mills are there, not there. but it doesn't explain the older mills. For example, at Stanningley, Company Mills was built in 1794. At Waterloo Lane, the Waterloo Mills were opened in 1816, Wellington Mills in 1823, and I'm at a loss not to be able to explain why these emissions occur. Perhaps you had to pay to get your mill on the map, I don't know. But the absence of the Waterloo Mill is particularly crucial, because by 1839, this was the mill in Bramley that was changing into power spinning and power looms, and which eventually would lead to virtually all the mills in areas adapting this process. Making cloth in the homes disappeared, and people had to go out to work in the mills. So there are significant losses. Another peculiar thing was there's only one chapel now identified on the map, and this was the Baptist chapel. You might get the impression then Bramley was an ungodly place, and possibly it was. But the Wesleyan Methodist chapel isn't there. The Anglican chapel isn't identified. And this again, I can't explain unless the compiler thought there wasn't room to put them on or something. So it's a very good map in some ways. And it certainly gives you plenty of evidence about things that existed. But there are a lot of omissions. And despite these, it gives quite a good clue of Bramley in 1839, when it was on the cusp of becoming a large industrial town.